with your dungeon master about the type of D&D game they plan to run. If the DM draws inspiration from Greek myth, for example, you might choose a different direction for your character than if the DM is planning for swashbuckling on the high seas. Think about the kind of adventurer you want to play in this game. If you don't know where to begin, look at the character illustrations in this book for inspiration. So, for example, the campaign setting that my DM has chosen is the Greyhawk setting. It was the first ever campaign setting created by Gary Gygax way back in the 70s, I think. He's the father of Dungeons and Dragons. He's the founder, and that was his campaign setting. It's really beginner friendly. It has a lot of different areas. It has urban areas, nature areas. It has a lot of dungeons, things like that. So we aren't limited in our party regarding classes and things. But like it states here, you might have an idea for, let's say, a rogue. However, if your campaign is going to be mostly in the wilds, rogues tend to be the most useful in urban settings, cities, towns, and quite simply, there is not going to be anywhere near as many people to pickpocket beyond your own party, which might cause you some trouble. So have a chat with your DM, get a bit of a feel for the flavour of the campaign, where it's set, and let that be a guide to you. Here, create your character. Here are the steps to make a character. Each step is explored in detail in this chapter. Choose a class. Every adventurer is a member of a class. A class broadly describes a character's vocation, special talents, and favoured tactics. 2. Determine origin. A character's origin includes two elements, background and species. How did the character spend the years leading up to a life of adventure? Who are the character's ancestors? You can also choose your character's languages. 3. Determine ability scores. Much of what your character does in the game depends on the character's 6 abilities. 4. Choose an alignment. Alignment is a shorthand for your character's moral compass. 5. Fill in details. Using the choices you've made, fill in the remaining details on your character sheet. We'll probably just be focusing on the first 3 steps in this video. I might do a whole video on just the alignments. It adds a certain complexity to the game, and then we'll fill in the details. So step 1, choose a class. So this is a class overview, which is quite handy. It lists the classes, the 12 classes, what they generally like, and I repeat, generally, this isn't written in stone. Their primary ability score here, so this is what they'll be using the most. Barbarian will be using strength the most, whilst you can avoid certain stereotypes. There are things that each class is the most useful for. You wouldn't build a barbarian if you want to be a magic user. You would go for wizard or warlock or sorcerer or, cleric, druid. There's quite a few. If you wanted to be some kind of martial arts also learned quite recently that from my current DM, a great way of building your character is, once you know what class you want to be, build the character itself. Find out who they are, where they came from, what their motivations are, what their likes and dislikes are, what their goals are. It will make it a lot easier to then build the character statistics, what points you add to their scores, what skills they have. If you know you want to build a character who is very chatty, very persuasive, you don't want someone that just tries to break the door down. You want someone who tries to talk their way in, a bit more sly, a bit more charismatic, literally the skill, charisma. Then you'll pick skills like persuasion over things like athletics. So it's a really great way to build the character. But this is a handy table, so if you know you want to be someone who just strides forward straight into combat, then maybe barbarian who likes battles, or fighter who likes weapons, or monk who likes unarmed combat. So just a nice little quick guide there. This is giving you a breakdown of the character sheet. So this is the character sheet that every character will use. Each of these numbers corresponds to one of those 5 steps that I just read out, so I won't go too in depth there. And this second one is your spells sheet, which you will use if you are a magic user. And we will get a closer look at these. I have my own one right here, ready to fill out. So this is now working through the steps, covering what you would do next. Write your level on your sheet, things like that. Determine your origin, your background, your species. You might hear the word race thrown around as well. So species is, human, dwarf, elf, tiefling, and they used to be referred to as races. It is now species, so they both are essentially interchangeable. If you hear them talking about race, they're talking about species, and vice versa. There's a lot of handy tables throughout this book. I won't cover all of them because there's a lot. But like I said, this is talking about choosing your background. So this table tells you which background matches which ability score. Choose your species, your past and present, your languages. This is a breakdown on determining your ability scores. There are 3 different ways of determining your ability scores, which I'll discuss once we get to them. I don't want to bombard too much at the moment. This is another handy table. This is called the standard array by class. So rather than working out your ability scores by the random generator, which is rolling d6s for it and leaving it to chance, or points cost, which is spending 27 points on different score numbers, you could just pick the generic one if you don't want to spend too much time on that, if you're not too picky. If you're happy to go with what they suggest in the Players Handbook, that's a really good table to use. This is also handy. You'll notice that some of these, for example, the barbarian has a really high strength of 15 and a low charisma of 8. So this means he's not very charismatic. It means that they can't really talk their way out of things, most likely, unless they get a very lucky roll. It means that they aren't going to be able to persuade people to their way, make friends very easily, but their strength is very high because a barbarian's primary function, essentially, is their battle prowess, their fighting skills, their strength. But this table here adds a little bit of flavour as to why your scores are that high or that low. So you could roll a d4. Where's mine? It's just there. And so let's go with strength. We have a high strength, so let's roll a d4 to find out why my character has a high strength. this session is all about the bare bones of your character, literally the building blocks for them. And then once you get to picking your class and fleshing them out, you're adding colour to them, you're adding vibrancy, depth, history, motivations. That's the colour that you're adding. I really, really liked that as a concept. But we're going to jump straight to classes and we can start filling in my character sheet. You may notice a slight change in the lighting and possibly the setup. That's because I got partway through filming what I could of this section and realised just how dark it had gotten and the lighting was terrible, so I thought I would pick up filming today. You rejoined me after a particularly difficult fight with the tree right outside this garden room. It's quite a windy day despite the sunshine, and it's blowing the tree which is scraping across the roof, and it's so loud. So in a fit of rage I got loppers and just started chopping branches off. Not many, because I really like that tree, it's really nice out there, but just the bits that were touching the garden roof. So I'm currently a hot, sweaty mess. But back to our character classes. I do apologise about the sun there. I might just try and reframe this a little bit so that it's not glaring on the book. That seems slightly better, but I think it's just because the sun's gone in. But we'll continue with the character classes. So I am going to reread this whole page. It just gives a very brief overview of each of the classes and their subclasses. So each class will have 4 possible subclasses, and these are like the specialisation of your character. Sort of like, a surgeon is your class, but brain surgeon is your subclass. You won't get to your subclass until level 3. Yes, the sun is back out. Hopefully it's not too bad. I'll try and keep it shaded with my shoulder. Yes, you'll get it at level 3, but it might be good for your character to have an idea of what you want your subclass to be. It might be that it's something your character is working towards, it's a goal of theirs. It might be that, for example, Druid, your family are all moon druids, and so you're a practice agility in battle. Glamour, to weave beguiling Feywild magic. College of Law, to collect knowledge and magical secrets. Or College of Valor, to wield weapons with spells. Cleric, invoke divine magic to heal, bolster and smite, then harness the life domain to be a master of healing, the light domain to wield searing warding light, the trickery domain to bedevil foes and with mischief, the war domain to inspire valor and chastise foes. Druid, channel nature magic to heal, shapeshift, and control the elements. Then join the circle of the land to draw on the magic of the environment. The circle of the moon to adopt powerful animal forms. The circle of the sea to channel tides and storms. Circle of the stars to gain powers in a starry form. Fighter, master all weapons and armor, then embody the battle master to use special combat maneuvers. The champion to strive for peak combat prowess. The eldritch knight to learn spells to aid in combat. Psi warrior to augment attacks with psionic power. Monk, dart in and out of melee while striking fast and hard, then become a warrior of mercy to heal or harm with a touch. Warrior of shadow to employ shadows for subterfuge. Warrior of the elements to wield elemental power. Or a warrior of the open hand to master unarmed combat. Paladin, smite foes and shield allies with divine and martial might, then swear the oath of devotion to emulate the angels of justice. Oath of glory to reach the heights of heroism. Oath of the ancients to preserve life, joy and nature. Oath of vengeance to hunt down evildoers. Ranger, weave together martial prowess, nature magic and survival skills. Then embody the Beastmaster to bond with a primal beast. Fey Wanderer to manifest Fey mirth and fury. Gloomstalker to hunt foes that lurk in darkness. The Hunter to protect nature with martial versatility. Rogue, launch deadly sneak attacks while avoiding harm through stealth. Then embody the arcane trickster to enhance stealth with spells. The assassin to deliver ambushes and poison. The soul knife to strike foes with psi blades. The thief to master infiltration and treasure hunting. Sorcerer, wield magic innate to your being, shaping the power to your will, then channel aberrant sorcery to use strange psionic magic. Clockwork sorcery to harness cosmic forces of order. Draconic sorcery to breathe the magic of dragons. Wild magic to unleash chaos magic. Warlock, cast spells derived from occult knowledge, then form a pact with the Archfey patron to teleport and wield Fey magic. Celestial patron to heal with heavenly magic. Fiend patron to call on sinister powers. Great Old One patron to delve into forbidden lore. And wizard, study arcane magic and master spells for every purpose, then embody the elusive effects, or the illusionist to weave spells of deception. So for example, my current character who I'm playing now is a paladin who's sworn an oath of the ancients to preserve life, joy and nature. I have a player character in our current campaign who is a ranger, a gloomstalker ranger, to hunt foes that lurk in darkness. And the character that I'm going to be creating today with you is a druid who will eventually join the Circle of Stars to gain powers in a starry form. So, we'll go straight to druid. Just find... oh, there we are. Here we go. Druid, a nature priest of primal power. So, each class will have this really handy table at the top, which is basically the basics of your character. So it tells me here my primary ability is going to be wisdom, so I will use that for my magic. So I know I want my wisdom stat to be fairly high, probably one of my highest. It tells me how many hit point dice I get, so the dice that you will roll to heal a little bit on short rests. So I get a d8 per druid level, so for level 1 I'll get to roll 1d8. My saving throw proficiencies, so I will get a bonus if I need to do a saving throw related to either intelligence or wisdom. Skill proficiency, so I can choose 2 of these skills. For me, I'm going to be choosing 2 that feel conducive to my character, that feel right for her, as well as being useful to a group of adventurers as a whole. It will tell me my weapon proficiencies, simple weapons, tool proficiencies, so I'm proficient in a herbalism kit, certainly makes sense for a druid, the type of armour that I can wear, and starting equipment. I can make a few different choices here. So I'll just read this intro bit for druids. Druids belong to ancient orders that call on the forces of nature, harnessing the magic of animals, plants, and the 4 elements. Druids heal, transform into animals, and wield elemental destruction. Revering nature above all, individual druids gain their magic from nature, a nature deity, or both, and they typically unite with other druids to perform rites that mark the passage of the seasons and other natural cycles. Druids are concerned with the delicate ecological balance that sustains plant and animal life, and with the need for people to live in harmony with nature. Druids often guard sacred sites or watch over regions of unspoiled nature, but when a significant danger arises, druids take a more active role as adventurers who combat the threat. So this is my class. What I'm going to do is just write that on my character sheet. You might have noticed I've already popped my name on here. I've chosen that name from Pinterest, not gonna lie. spells and your skills and your stats, you kind of want to be jumping backwards and forwards between what you get with them. So I'll give you a rundown of what I've chosen first. So I'm going to attempt to find the tiefling page, so bear with me a moment. Here we are. I really, really love this species. I find it really, really interesting. I just think that there's something really intriguing about a tiefling. You can go anywhere with it and create some really interesting backstory and goals with a tiefling. Tieflings are either born in the lower planes or have fiendish ancestors who originated there. A tiefling, pronounced tiefling, is linked by blood to a devil, a demon, or some other fiend. This connection to the lower planes is the tiefling's fiendish legacy, which comes with the promise of power, yet has no effect on the tiefling's moral outlook. A tiefling chooses whether to embrace or lament their fiendish legacy. The three legacies are described below: abyssal, chthonic, and infernal. Now I've gone for infernal. The infernal legacy connects tieflings not only to Gehenna, but also to the nine hells and the raging battlefields of Acheron. Horns, spines, tails, golden eyes, and a faint odour of sulphur or smoke are common physical features of such tieflings, most of whom trace their ancestry to devils. None of these particularly fit with my character, so I sort of went for one that fit as closely. One theme for my character is that she's trying to remove herself as much from this legacy as possible. The idea being that she is trying to connect herself further and further to the stars because she thinks they're the furthest away from the nine hells. So this will describe what traits you get with a tiefling. So humanoid is the type. Size, you can be medium or small. 30 feet of speed. As a tiefling you get dark vision with a range of 60 feet. And your fiendish legacy, which is these three here, they will get me certain things. So the infernal legacy, you have resistance to fire damage. You also know the firebolt cantrip. At level 3, I will get Hellish Rebuke, and at level 5, I will get Darkness. I also know the Thaumaturgy cantrip because of my otherworldly presence. So I'll pop that down on my sheet here. And the next thing will be the background, so I will skip to that now as well. Other side. So, character origins, this includes your species. So character backgrounds. Your character's background is a collection of characteristics that represent the place and occupation that were most formative before your character embarked on a life of adventure. Each background includes a brief narrative of what your character's past might have been like. Alter the details of this narrative however you like. Parts of a background. A background includes the following parts. Ability scores. A background lists 3 of your character's ability scores. Increase one by 2 and another one by 1, or increase all 3 by 1. None of these increases can raise a score above 20. A feat, a background gives your character a specified a specified origin feat. Skill proficiencies, a background gives your character proficiency in 2 specified skills. Tool proficiency, each background gives a character proficiency with 1 tool, either a specific tool or one chosen from the artisan's tool category. And equipment, each background offers a choice between a package of equipment and 50 gold pieces. So, the background I have gone for is a scribe, and I will just read this to you. You spent formative years in a scriptorium, a monastery dedicated to the preservation of knowledge, or a government agency where you learned to write with a clear hand and produce finely written text. Perhaps you scribed government documents or copied tomes of literature. You might have some skill as a writer of poetry, narrative or scholarly research. Above all, you have a careful attention to detail, helping you avoid introducing mistakes to the documents you copy and create. Now that might seem quite different to what a druid is. Most druids don't spend much time in urban areas with stereotypical jobs and roles like that. However, I had already decided that part of my character's history was that she was found by a scholar in a city who decided to take her in and essentially treat her as an experiment. Not experiment on her, but he wanted to see if he could essentially raise a tiefling into high society, make them learned, intelligent, a scholar essentially. And so she was raised in a very scholarly household, very learned, had many classes, attended many high society functions where her guardian would show off her intelligence and her accomplishments, things like that. So this felt quite good in that he, essentially put her to work just to increase her knowledge and stature. It was quite handy for me as well because it included wisdom in the ability scores that I could possibly increase. I really liked the skill proficiencies included with this: investigation and perception, particularly perception. Perception is a wisdom skill, so that would be very helpful to me. And the feat is skilled, so we will find that in a moment when I cover that feat. But it basically means that I can pick extra skills to be proficient in, and I really wanted to play a character who could be very helpful, and again it felt quite conducive to my character for her to have quite a few skills, considering that she spent most of her life learning various different things. So one tip that I would give you here is pick your class, your species and your background before you roll for your stats. So that's your strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom and charisma, because this will allow you to boost certain ones, so then you might want to put some lower numbers to some of these, knowing you will boost them later on with your background. It's also really handy to note down the skill proficiencies that you will get with your background, because it means that if they are included in the skills you can choose for your class, you know not to choose those because you already get it. Just a bit of a handy tip there. So again, I will write my background on my character sheet. And I have already separately made a note of the skills that I get here and the ability scores that I can boost. So we will head to my skill. apologies, my feet, which is skilled. I've passed it apparently. It's one of the earlier ones. Yes, here we go. So, skilled. You gain proficiency in any combination of 3 skills or tools of your choice. So this basically gives me 3 skills or 2 tools, and I can choose 1 skill and 2 tools, or 3 skills and no tools, any combination of the 2. So again, I have made a note of the skills that I want to choose for this character. So we will go through that in a moment. What we're now going to do is roll our stats. So just heading back. So I do realize I keep interchanging the words for this. I'm getting myself very confused. So stats are ability scores. So there are 3 different ways that you can generate your scores. Standard array. Use the following 6 scores for your abilities. So this will give you the 6 figures: 15, 14, 13, 12, 10 and 8, and you can assign them to any of the 6 skills in a way that suits your character. Random generation. Roll 4d6s and record the total of the highest 3 dice. Do this 5 more times so you have 6 numbers, and then you will assign those 6 numbers to your ability scores. Or point cost. You have 27 points to spend on your ability scores. The cost of each score is shown on the ability score point costs table. For example, a score of 14 costs 7 of your 27 points. So 8 costs 0, 9 costs 1 point, 10 costs 2 points, etc. They go up individually until you get here. So 13 is worth 5 points, but 14 is worth 7, and 15 is worth 9. So you get 27 points, and you can spend them however you like. What I will do is put a link in the description to a website that I have been shown and I have used myself to do the scoring of the points. The point scoring, it's a lot easier. I'm not particularly numbers minded, so it's just a really handy one. It will tell you what you've got left as you assign them, and you can plus and minus on them and have a nice play around. Just as a bit of an insight as to how these work. So 10 is essentially your average human being. So if you are a 10 in strength, you are average strength. This will tell you what bonuses you get for each number. So here you'll find the barbarian 15 strength. They'll get a +2 to their roll, so that if they roll to break down a door, they'll add 2 to their roll because they are stronger than the standard level of strength. You'll notice that 8 here is a -1, that's below average, and obviously the higher you get, the better you are in that skill. So I'm going to show you an example of random generation, so rolling for our scores. So I have 4 dice here. I have quite a collection of these. I got quite obsessed with buying dice sets, as most D&D players or general tabletop role players are probably the same. if you have a very kind DM, they may allow you to re-roll any ones that you have. And then if you roll any additional ones, they would just stay. But they might not. They don't have to. They might just leave you with what you've got. So my lowest number is 2. I'm going to remove that. So I am left with 8, 12. I'm going to make a note of that. I'm going to roll my 4 dice again, 5 more times. 3 is the low. Oh my gosh! I literally rolled the maximum I could roll there. Reroll my 1 if I have a kind DM. And remove the lowest. So 16 there. I'm not going to say how I'm rolling because that will just jinx me. So we have 13. Quick maths. 14. Told you I'm not numbers brained, genuinely. And last roll. 15. Those are some really good rolls. I have not rolled lower than a 12. So these are the scores that I'm left with. So then what I would do is I would assign these scores to an ability score that I think suits my character. You could use this table as an example. So Druid, Wisdom, has been given the highest score, so it would be very useful if I assigned my 18 to Wisdom. Constitution is helpful to any class, hence why these are generally quite high. That is in control of your hit points, your health. So I will assign probably my 14 to Constitution in this example. Then here we have intelligence is quite high, and I know that I have some skills that are going to be using intelligence, so I'm going to put my 15 there. Again, this is all personal choice. I've just spotted that 16. Oh dear. Right, hang on. So this is why you write everything in pencil, particularly on your character sheet. So I'm going to change that round. I'm going to put 16 as my intelligence, 15 as my constitution. So we've done my 3 highest now. Dexterity is useful again to all classes, most classes. It is in charge of your armor class. So a higher dexterity means a higher armor class, which means you're harder to hit. So I'm going to put my 14 as my dex. Charisma isn't a score I'm going to use particularly often, so I'm going to put that as the 12. I might want to do some talking, things that would be useful with higher charisma, but not very often, so it's a good number to have for charisma. And then my dump stat, my lowest stat, and I've done it again. I think the heat is getting to me slightly here. Also, I'm just surprised that 12, that there's any number lower than 13 on here. So charisma is going to be my second lowest, and strength is going to be 12. That is a really, really high score for a dump stat, which is essentially the stat that you are not putting anything against, really, because you don't need it or use it very often. So this is an example of a random generation. Now bear in mind I've rolled very, very well. There's nothing in single digits here. nothing less than a 12. So you can see here the highest that you could get is an 18. However, with random generating, the lowest that you could get is a 3, which means that you would have a negative here, a -4, so a penalty of 4 to any roll you made. So it would take away, if you rolled a 10, your roll would then be a 6. So it does leave it up to chance, which means that a lot of people do prefer to do the points cost or even the standard array. I have rolled 2 characters with using the random generator way, and my most recent character and my next character is going to be done with the points cost because that's how those 2 DMs prefer to do it. So I have already chosen my ability scores for this character, so I'm just going to grab those and pop them down on my sheet for you. So I have my sheet here. So my strength is going to be my dump stat, so your score goes in the smaller box here. So I'm going to pop an 8 in there. My dexterity is going to be 12. My constitution is going to be 14. My intelligence is going to be 13. My wisdom is going to be 15. And my charisma is going to be 10. And I think I might have gone for the exact standard array that they suggest here. Strength 8, dexterity 12, constitution 14, intelligence 13, wisdom 15, charisma 10. Yeah, I've gone for the exact standard array that they suggest. What I'm now going to do is add the points to my ability scores from my background. So my background allowed me to choose from either dexterity, intelligence or wisdom, and I had 3 points. I could assign 2 to one score and 1 point to another, or I could add 1 to all 3. I'm going to add 1 to all 3, so I'm going to add 1 to dexterity to make it 13, add 1 to intelligence to make it 14, and add 1 to wisdom to make it 16. So I'll just do that now. So 13 dexterity, intelligence 14, and wisdom 16. What you might notice on your ability scores and modifier table here is they are in sets of 2. So 6 to 7 points is -2, 10 to 11 points is 0. So it's really handy if you can get your ability score to an even, because that adds a 1 to your roll. So for example, my wisdom was on 15, which is a +2 modifier. I've added 1 to it to make it 16, so it's a +3.